Hi, everybody. Prepare yourselves like I am preparing myself. We are live here for the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. It is the Christmas episode. It is the last episode of the year, and it's going to be a banger. So, like, subscribe, hit the alert bell. Make sure you check out all the stuff. Make sure you are prepared. Make sure you are ready for what is to come. We're going to talk a lot about Gorilla Pool today. Now, I very purposely not talked a whole lot about Gorilla Pool on the show because it's a very jingly jingle bell. So I'm gonna take the jingle bell off my head so I don't go crazy. Everybody, Merry Christmas, first of all. So if we don't get to talk, if I don't see you before Christmas, Merry Christmas. Enjoy your families. Tune out. Spend some time with real people, and you're going to be way better for it. Happy holidays to everybody else. This is the second day of Hanukkah. I don't know if you're celebrating Kwanzaa, and then there's Festivus for the rest of us, but you can go celebrate whatever it is you're going to celebrate. But tune out, separate yourselves from everything for a little bit. Focus on the people in your real life, because it's the people in your real life that really matter. I say be good to each other all the time, and I think some people think it's just a catchphrase that I like to say because I'm had to come up with a catchphrase. But in reality, I mean, that really is the root of all of it, is that we need to be good to each other so that the world has a reason to be what we want it to be. And if we can't be good to each other, then the rest of it, it's not going to work out anyways. So like I was saying, Gorilla Pool has traditionally not been talked about a whole lot. I will talk about it if people ask, or I'll mention something if we created something. But just because of like the basic conflict of interest stuff, I don't talk about it a lot because I don't want to seem like I'm like self-marketing and doing the whole Gorilla thing, even though it is really my core business. Like, Gorilla Pool has been the thing that has really rocketed a lot of the stuff out that some people probably aren't particularly aware of. There's been a lot of promises that have happened in BSV. There's been a lot of soon TM, but in reality, the stuff that actually gets used. So if you look at onesatordinals.com, the Jungle Bus tooling, just with those two things, that's most of the transaction on BSV for the last like two and a half years have come from just those two things, or they're cycled through those two things. But we have also been the primary maintainers of Yours Wallet, the OneSat Market. We are the developers behind the money stablecoin. We have built all kinds of underlying tooling. We built the Go SDK. We have built a whole bunch of the other tooling and underlying stuff. We have participated in TerraNode since day one. And ultimately, we're going to have Luke Rohenaz on in a little bit to talk a little bit about what it meant to build out the GorillaNode implementation, because TerraNode is awesome, but it also didn't have any tooling to connect to any of the existing pool software that exists in the universe. So we had to build pool software from scratch. We had to connect it to all of our other, like our indexers and Jungle Bus and all this other stuff. All the overlay stuff, the wallet toolbox that is now like the main BSVA wallet toolbox is based on tooling that Luke built 2 years ago. And lots of other things have come out of the jungle. So if you're using almost any of the tooling across the BSV universe, you probably could thank Gorilla Pool for maybe developing it from the very get-go, at the very least supporting it from scratch. This is the same for everybody that has ever tried to use Electrum SV in the last 2 years. A lot of the Electrum servers have gone down, and we have brought them back. And so we have worked really, really hard to make BSV great again, maybe great for the first time. We're definitely trying to make Bitcoin great again. And so that's been our focus for really the last 18 months, definitely the last 24 months, the last 2 years for sure has been focused, not just mining blocks, not just facilitating physical infrastructure for people to be able to mine in BSV so they have a little bit of personal buy-in for things, but also we realized early on that the app development universe was insufficient in a lot of ways, and so we have built as much tooling as possible. And then we've also been developing our own applications. And so we're going to talk quite a bit about some stuff that we are excited to debut and stuff that we are excited to bring back. A lot of it has come out of the brain of Luke. Luke is our chief mad scientist. I sometimes call him the chief widget winder of the jungle or whatever else. But Luke comes up with lots and lots of really great ideas. He works his ass off on a day-to-day basis. He's one of those 7 day a week, 15 hours a day kind of guys that likes to just bang stuff out because he has so many big ideas. But I also need to give a shout out to guys like David Case for helping with implementation on both high level and low level stuff. He is a database wizard. He's a Bitcoin wizard, and we're really glad to have him. We also have Michael Root Boyd, whose name I do not typically say in the universe, but Michael has been a tremendous business partner. He has made it possible for everything that we've ever seen done at Gorilla Pool by hosting all the node infrastructure, making sure everything is up and running. I mean, he is literally on a day-to-day basis like, well, I had to rip down this database, we had to put it back up, I had to sync this thing, we had like, well, this took a crap, I'm moving it from this machine to this machine and whatever. And so the fact that BSV works in a lot of ways is based on Mike Root making sure that stuff all works. And then we got guys like Dan and Jason that we've brought on over the last year or so to also help with like project management, implementation, coding stuff out that really, really matters. And so if you use Yours Wallet or Jungle Bus or any of the BRC 100 stuff related to some of those things, OneSat Ordinals, the OneSat Market, all that stuff, the Go SDK, and parts of the TS SDK too. That was primarily a Project Babbage project, but we've also contributed a bit to the TS SDK. That stuff is coming from the hard work of the apes. And so I wanted to not make this about me and my company, but really give the credit to the team, because really what I'm doing is I'm kind of managing people and ideas and stuff, but the implementation is being done by the other guys. So we're going to have Luke come on in just a few moments. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of things. And this is both the Christmas show and the last show of the year. And we'll say a farewell at the end of it. So strap in. This is going to be a long one also. We're going to go at least an hour and a half. Maybe we'll go 2 hours. So go take a pee break if you need it. Top up that coffee or whatever you're going to need. You're going to want to hydrate, get a little bit of some protein and carbs in you, and it's going to be a heck of a show. So we're going to take a little breather. We're going to play a quick ad from Lilbit, one of the only other guys doing really cool stuff. And we are going to be right back. Alrighty, everybody. To answer Krev, I see Krev asking about my weight, and because I'm going to normally don't talk too much about myself, I'm going to talk about myself one more time. I am down another 15 pounds this year. I am still, however, 235 pounds of Kurt, so I'm still a heavyweight. But no. I lifting, cardio, all of that. I get my 10,000 steps a day and all of that jazz. But yeah, I've been working real hard on being the leanest, meanest version of myself. So glad that it looks. And to people saying slimmer face, I also shaved today. I normally wear a little bit more of a beard and stuff, so that's also going on. Luke, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey. Chief Widget Winder. I was just making my business card. That's perfect.
Perfect. No, I love it. And really, it's funny. Like you and I have become quite good friends. I think we met finally in person in London like 5 years ago now. And holy crap, have we been through a whole bunch of stuff since 2020. It was 2020.
That feels like probably must have been longer.
Right? Well, it's funny because when we met, you were quote unquote just the CEO of Tonic Pow. You had recently won that, or I think took second place in the hackathon and all of that stuff. And you came and introduced yourself and said, "Hey, I'm Luke. Like I'm Satchmo. I'm the crazy mage on the internet, and good to meet you." And I liked you right away, and we have collaborated on a whole bunch, and then ultimately have ended up working together a ton now for the last couple of years. So, Luke, first of all, thank you for the journey thus far. But let's talk a little bit about. Let's start with the GorillaNode thing, because we just mined our first Terranode block yesterday, and nobody on Earth has built out from scratch like the entire stack to mine with such a thing. I know Tal definitely beat us to mining the first block with Terrano, but they had a little bit of a head start on some of that stuff. But they also had a whole dev team and funding and all this stuff to get it done. And we since day one have been like, all right, man, we're gonna go popsicle sticks and bubblegum style here and see if we can bang this thing out. And just the fact that we did it at all, I think is really great. But let's talk a little bit about the process and how we did it inside of like 4 months from the time I think we even said, should we build it from scratch or should we do some other thing? But let's talk through the process.
Other, kind of mainstream priorities at the same time that we had
Yeah.
It's not even like any one of us was fully working on that project at the same time.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, it was spread out across a dozen other projects. So yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a good learning experience because most of the time the nodes and the things that run the pools or whatever, these things run for a long time and don't really need a whole lot of changes. So
yeah,
these things don't come up every day.
Yeah, indeed. Just getting into like the deep level node stuff and just a lot of the stuff, it was at first, we try to implement the thing and it's high hash error, low hash error, some deep cryptography problem, like proof of work insufficient, and all these weird things that come up when you're like, okay, well, what did we do wrong? And a lot of it starts to get real mathy in solving some of this stuff. Can we get granular with it? Like, let's talk about like what were the big drivers of problems and how we get through them.
And this reminds me a lot of when I was doing like firmware development for like chips and stuff for like if we were designing a spirometer one time and some other interesting like Bluetooth enabled medical devices and things like that. And it's just like almost like Russian dolls. Like when you're in a super low level, you have a small problem. You kind of know the confines of what it needs to be. For us, it's like things are going to get assembled. They're going to be in Stratum protocol. So they're going to be assembled in a very specific way. And there's a couple versions of Stratum. So you kind of have to immerse yourself in those protocols and understand how they work. But once you're past the problem, you don't really have to go back in and do it. So it's kind of like not necessarily something you memorize, but something you deep dive in and get through the problem. And then you get to the next Russian doll and solve that and keep going. All of a sudden, working thing. And it helps that we had a reference project. We had a working node. Yeah, obviously there's changes, but we did it in phases. First step is we got a rewrite from the ground up in Go that was working with the existing design against the existing node software, just to make sure that all the fundamentals were sound about, can we find blocks, whatever,
right,
from testnet and then the mainnet and everything else. So yeah, just brick by brick.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the team too. Like really, it was a collaboration. It was you, David, Root, and then ultimately Claude in a lot of ways too.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about like the AI tooling and how much, how much you've dug into Claude and making that a big part of our workflow, but also like that specifically in the development of the GorillaNode?
Yeah, and I'll say first of all, it's not just Claude, right? But there's all these new tools coming out, and they give you tremendous leverage. You have to know how to use them just like anything else. And there is obviously, you can just go to one of these things and just start talking to it and get some output. But there is a certain amount of like being able to read the code that's going by and recognize immediately when something isn't going the right way or isn't exactly the way you instruct it, or even knowing how to instruct it to do the right thing or to organize it the right way. And even then, you're wrangling. And then when we got to a lot of the low level byte manipulation stuff, oddly, it struggled a lot with that, which I thought it would have done a lot better with some of those. I think even some of the models that we have out now compared to when we were working on this already would have done a much better job.
It's funny, just months.
It's crazy how fast it's gone.
So what other tools in the stack are you using? I know Claude is a big driver, but what else are you using? What would you recommend other devs use? I think at the end of this show, I want people watching the show to really understand why we do what we do, because I want to educate more devs to be better devs, et cetera.
Yeah, so we have a GitHub organization that we piled a bunch of stuff into that's let me make sure I'm saying it right before I just say it. It's bopen.io, but I can never remember the hyphens. I think it's b-open-io because we have an npm org that's similar. Yeah. So anyway, b-open-io is the GitHub org. And there's a whole bunch of code there, including a repo called prompts. And the prompts repo is loaded with sort of like knowledge about all kinds of different little aspects. Like there's a Bitcoin specialist in there that has, a bunch of little cues that kind of help align Claude with some of the things that it does, that it makes mistakes. And I try to just kind of iterate on this. And then I use these prompts locally as I'm coding to kind of keep the model in alignment. Because a lot of the stuff we're working on is pretty niche and the models don't necessarily know about it unless you're introducing them to it.
For sure. So among all the stuff we've been working on at Gorilla Pool, like we've also been working on, organizational stuff and business stuff. For anybody that sent us work, they've probably seen on some of the invoices like Open Protocol Labs or the Be Open org. So we got bopen.io, which is not entirely finished as a website, but also openprotocollabs.com, which kind of explains a lot of the vision and direction stuff. You want to talk about like what actually Russian Dolls is a really good one, like the Gorilla Pool, Be Open, and Open Protocol, like which one's on the inside and the outside. But can we talk a little bit about the the direction of this stuff and why we're trying to take things that way?
Yeah. So I mean, the way it kind of works is, so Open Protocol Labs is kind of like the umbrella that kind of is over everything. Be Open is a brand that's geared toward basically like if you think there's like an enterprise client or whatever that realizes that this is the future and they need to decide how to build a certain system or whatever, we're like, that's like a consulting arm for that type of work in various different industries where we've thought about this and made prototypes and have the infrastructure and the protocols and everything. Our whole philosophy is that this infrastructure makes open protocols kind of an inevitability, that I don't think people are going to really settle for these silos when you can very easily have an interconnected, interoperable, I can go into 15 different interfaces and look at all my data through these different lenses and have relationships with all these different organizations instead of, Facebook or X or whatever. And maybe these big networks would be like one participant in a bigger network like this. And so we made a bet a long time ago that this is where everything, eventually people will realize this, and that, we would be well positioned to like help them build products that were in that world, but then also we're going to start laying the groundwork so that we can build on top of that stuff. We built a lot of early apps over the years, things like Jamify, things like MetaLens, things, all of these different prototypes. Even TonicPow was part of this whole vision. TonicPow was realizing, okay, in a world like that, how does advertising work? Well, you can't go to the one platform because they don't own all of this activity.
Right.
And they're not going to catch all the users. They're just going to catch their users. You want to go to the influencer directly, or whoever it is that has an audience, because they're going to have that audience across, 1,000 different sites. Yeah. It's going to be about who follows them. And so that whole way of thinking, once you change that around, I feel like we just saw all this stuff like super early. I mean, most people, I still think, don't see that this is like an inevitable thing.
Sure. Yeah, very few do, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, we've just been slowly building all the different pieces that we need to do that. Jungle Bus, it's funny too, because Jungle Bus is one of the ones that's drawn kind of a lot of criticism over the years. Yeah. Because of this kind of sort of the centralized idea of it, that it's a service that's pulling something from a node and kind of filtering things directly in a single pipeline like this. But I think what people never counted on is that we realize that too. Like, this is all going to be peer-to-peer and interconnected between all these indexers, all these different services, all these things that we're dealing with. But like, who has the data right now? How do we get it in right now? The nodes have the best connection. We can get it all from a node. We do have relationships with nodes. It's why, I started working so closely with Gorilla Pool in the first place, was because this data relationship was so important. Yep. But now the tools for the overlays are maturing. So Jungle Bus to everybody else is still just going to be Jungle Bus. It's now just going to start operating as a peer on these other networks and be one of the strongest peers and have all the data that we care about tagging and still offer the same API for streaming data out the other side. So at some point, you could even sever that connection to the node and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah. Well, and that's the power of it. You know, I have always sort of thought of Jungle Bus as like a I call it like an overlay engine, where perhaps it didn't exist before, but and it's funny because it really is the thing that got us working together basically full time. Like you came to us with this idea saying like, hey, you know, we developed Bitcoin schema and a bunch of these things, like really simple ways to have data shared across the network, but it needs an engine. It needs something that can push it out to the universe in order to make some of your older apps work. But then it's also turned into the development of all these other things. So can we talk a little bit about, you know, I try to explain it to people, like think of it like the piece of middleware between the node or the node network and your apps or whatever. But is there a better way to explain what Jungle Bus is to somebody that just kind of can't figure it out in their head or why they should be using it?
Yeah, it's like, okay, if I'm running, like if I care about data apps, and there's only certain transactions on the blockchain that meet that criteria, right? And you could pretty much eliminate like the other, you know, 90-something% of transactions and just be left with a subset of data that now you can index and query and stuff like that. So, I mean, that was the basis of it. And even before we did it, this was, you know, a lot of the planaria stuff that was with the Unwriter stuff. There were servers that were set up that were just indexing off of a node. Back then, you had to run your own node and connect it to it, which we always knew was not something that was going to happen long term. But they even had, I say they, I mean, Unwriter even had like certain, like he started to get to a point where there was a couple layers of this. So you'd have one that was kind of a more broader shot, but less granular query capability. And then that would feed other ones. I think this concept was Neon Planaria, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yep.
But it is, that's this whole mandala network spirit that you have this inner ring with all the data at the center, and then it can kind of split out into pieces. So maybe you think of this like ordinals. Let's say you have one sat ordinals and you care about those. Well, the whole universe of those is still less than, you know, 1% of the blockchain probably, or something like that. Yep. So you break off, now you're just working in this little piece, and now you just say, okay, well, I only care about like the videos or something, and that's like 1% of that. So that's another little indexer from it, but it never had to talk to a node, and it never had to know about the other, you know, 90 whatever percent.
Yep. So then I had John Calhoun on the show last week, and he was talking about Xanadu, which is his new social network. It's very specifically BRC100 built, so it requires the MetaNet wallet and those kind of things. And I had a pretty good talk with him about why he should be using MAP, for example, as you know, for putting the various objects on, so it can be interacted with, excuse me, outside of Xanadu. So if Xanadu were to go out of business, you know, and he said, well, yeah, if you're BRC100 compliant, it doesn't matter. But that's also that is a decision that's made. Why should something like Xanadu also be having that data in a magic attribute protocol bucket on the chain?
Well, it's a case by case basis, right? Like not everything is probably best this way, but there's a number of different sort of interesting advantages that might come from it. So one is like the ability to then express the same data in like a bunch of different ways. Like the fact that you can have 10 different clients that all render the same data in different ways and might give unique experiences with that same data. The fact that like, now, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. Like as a product owner, you're giving up something almost to join in on an open protocol in a way. Yep. It almost feels like you're making a sacrifice because you're allowing your users to leave your precious walls, right? And I don't know enough about how it works. You know, I don't want to suggest that there's walls in the system that you're referencing or whatever. I haven't had my head up at all for a very long time, to be honest.
Sure.
But yeah,
I think so. Like Ty, for example, was the first and biggest proponent of BRC100, which we've supported in some of the things that we've created. Also, like I don't think it's a bad idea by any means, but the idea is if you're using the MetaNet wallet, that anything that's BRC100 compliant has a similar like available to everybody style. So they're kind of trying to push everybody to BRC100 so that regardless of what tools you're using, you're able to access that data because it's in compliance with that protocol. So my challenge to him was, hey, since it's a social network, all these open social protocols are way older. So if you wanted to be able to suck in like old Twetches or locks, you know, it's like some of these other transactions that exist that using map as an underlying tool might be a wise thing for him to do.
Well, that is one of the big advantages when you're coming from zero to something. You get an entire site filled with data that you can automatically see. And the same thing's true with like Jamify, right? So that's one of the things that we can talk about. But all that data, even though they were run tokens, the berries on run tokens are B protocol, which is one of these old Bitcoin protocols, just like everything else that we use. So very simple, easy to index. Jungle Bus has them. ORDFS can serve them up. So it's pretty cool that we can basically bring Jamify back pretty easily with just even without the one sat conversion, like converting your run tokens over to one sat, we can make like a read-only version that you can go and you can browse all the old music and play all the old music. In fact, I had it working yesterday, just messing around with it.
Sure.
And it's really easy to do because of the primitives that we have now, which we didn't have any of that stuff back then, like ORDFS. Right.
Can we explain ORDFS? Like, you know, I don't know that people understand how file server stuff works necessarily, but what the heck is ORDFS for people that don't know?
ORDFS is like just the most simple idea ever. Is just like you could go to a URL with a TX ID and just get the file that was stored in that transaction. Yeah. Now we have two transaction protocols so far. One was the old one that Unwriter made called B, and the new one is the one-sat ordinals inscription envelope. That's essentially a file. They both have the same fields. They both have content type, the content itself.
Yep. Cool.
That's all you need to express a file. So basically ORDFS says, you give me a URL, I'll return you the file that's in here. And then there's some special rules and parameters that you can say. You can dig in deeper and say, I want the image from this particular output. So you could do underscore 99 and get the 99th output and then see that image. Yeah. So we actually use that when we're building apps. You know, we have some data, some API comes back with a list of things in my wallet and I want to render them on the screen. I just render ordfs.network/content/the TXID _output index, right?
Yep.
So you have a predictable way to just get to an image. So it's just that little primitive, just every single time you don't have to download a transaction, parse it, convert it into some kind of image that you can display or whatever.
Just simplify the process. Cool.
And that's really the mantra across all this stuff. We've been working for years on so many different things, and now they're at the point where we're starting to have these big, important primitives that just plug together, and new projects, new sites we can build. We're going to be able to build things incredibly fast.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about the next level up. So we have the one-sat ordinals token protocol, which again I think started in your head, and then was you and David primarily implementing it with help from a couple other people in the space. But I mean, that's also received some criticism. The Stas people don't like that it's that there's anything calculated off chain or whatever else. But can we talk a little bit about why one-sat ordinals is built the way that it's built, but then also it's sort of its place in the grander ecosystem and like why it is similar to the other things, like basically the engineering ethos that went behind it, so people can understand why we think the way we think.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the overwhelming idea is simplicity. Is that if it's extremely minimal, just does what it needs to do and kind of nothing more, then it could be incredibly like interoperable and you could use it with almost anything else. And if you wanted certain properties like Stas-like properties, you can use a script with it that would enforce a certain type of output or something like that if you wanted to, but you're not forced to.
Yep.
So that's kind of why, though, it's also gotten as much adoption and support as it has. And I think, a lot of times the oversimplistic kind of answer to something that's a very, there's a million different ways to do it. And there's a lot of people with strong opinions about how it should be done. I mean, there's going to be criticism. That's fine.
Yeah. No, totally fair. Uh-oh, you got visitors.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, when we talk about one-sat ordinals, there's an ecosystem there too, including one-sat.market and some other stuff related to those tokens, including So you have like your basic NFT protocol, but then there's these extension protocols for making fungible tokens, one of which was used by Money, ultimately Money, MNEE, which we've talked about quite a bit on this show. We ended up developing as an extension protocol to the BSV21 fungible token protocol. But again, with the design decisions and those kind of things, like why is it the right decision to use one set ordinals or a BSV21 based idea for doing fungible tokens?
Well, it was the same thing. There were requirements that they needed to have. The way that they needed to design the system, so that there was always a cosigner. So they needed basically a custom script to be able to be interoperable with the token protocol. And it's, again, for the same reason that the OneSat protocol itself is just very, very basic. It makes it easy to apply to any situation and to customize and to have it work exactly the way that you need it to.
Yeah. So then let's start talking about some of the bigger ideas. Like you've had a lot of big ideas, things like BitChat Nitro, or any kind of on-chain chat kind of tooling, but then also things like Sigma Identity, Sigma Auth, and then we can talk about like what is using that and why it matters. And maybe I've also talked about things like Clerk and Privy on the show. I've written about them recently and like why people are using that kind of tooling in the first place. So first, what problem are we trying to solve? And then let's focus on Sigma for a few minutes. And so what are we solving for, and how does Sigma do it?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is open protocol. So we're talking about on-chain data that's getting written by individual users, and that the ownership isn't with a platform, but a platform needs to express, hey, this was made by my platform, right? So everybody involved basically needs some kind of a key to sign stuff with, but we know keys aren't identity. So we need some kind of underlying protocol that lets you rotate the keys if they get compromised and that kind of thing. So this is, again, going with the old, we just never gave up on some of the original ideas. And the original protocols that we had for this stuff, we had map for metadata, we had author identity protocol for like signatures of the data that wasn't related to the key that funded it. Because that's the easy way, right? To just say, hey, if I sent it, therefore that's my identity key. But you can have a server that's making free transactions for everybody, and that's what's funding. That's not the identity of the user at all. So you need to be able to express them. Again, you need simple composable things that you can put wherever, and they can be totally portable. So anyway, we're now expressing like what it is we're writing on chain in simple metadata. We're signing it with some external key. Then we have a third protocol that is, okay, now this is like the identity layer, where we're expressing the relationship between, an individual and saying, okay, this individual is controlling these keys, but the individual member keys are what they use for signing in places. So if one ever gets compromised, there's a protocol to rotate that key and make the rotation record on chain. Yeah. So any future signing with that other key is not associated with the identity anymore.
Right.
And then you now have a new key that you can resume your identity. So the holding of the particular key isn't linked to it. Now it's not perfect because you still have you have a root key that has to be protected,
right?
Or you have to create a new, start over and create a new identity type of thing. Yeah. But you could do that. There's other ways to piecemeal it back together. So the identity protocol also has attestations which you can put on chain. So you could have some authority or issuer, whoever. That's all relative, by the way, right? Your bank, your country, whoever you think is an authority can make an attestation on chain to whatever fact that you rotated your root identity key even.
Right.
That's not all necessarily fleshed out, but the point is we needed primitives for this stuff. And every time that we build like little prototype apps that don't have these pieces, because they're so complicated, there's so many layers, they're just like not the real thing that you're trying to express to people what can be built here. And they're not going to really get the picture of like why Bitcoin apps even make sense.
Sure.
So it's a big deal to get these like pillars that we know we need all together so we can easily plug these in and make apps out of them. So Sigma Identity is a really good example. It's basically a central auth server. So, but it's one that you can set up on your own. So there's a similar concept called OpenAuth. The same guys that make OpenCode, the AI terminal, which is really, really good, make something called OpenAuth. OpenAuth is a central auth server you stand up, and now you can do like sign in with Google on your site and all this stuff, but it goes through your own central auth server. And then all your projects that you make, you can send off to that central auth server. So Sigma Identity is meant to be a central auth server that you can basically use it as a client-side wallet. So it has the same type of thing that you'd get from like a Money Button back in the day, where you would have a wallet and you would basically encrypt it. It would get encrypted locally, and you could decrypt it with a password. But Money Button themselves don't know your actual key, but they do have the ability to restore it because they have the encrypted backup. So this is basically a wallet for identity keys that can be used to sign into any app. And this makes it super easy to finally get out all of these other apps that we've been wanting to have, because they need to have, they're all decentralized. They all go on these open protocols. We need to have hard identity associated with these that works across the apps.
Yeah. And then how does it correlate to like Web 2? Like one of the major things is like Sigma Auth that was developed, and this would be maybe the analog to that would be
this is that. So okay, so we have the whole key management thing is going on there on the central auth server. You can manage things like OAuth clients. So if you want to build an app and you want that app to be as a certain identity, you go in your Sigma Identity profile, you basically designate a new profile, get a new key for your app, and then you can set up its whole profile like it was a person. You know what I mean? Put a picture and a banner and all that. Give it a name. Then you can go and set that up as in your environmental variable in your project as the member like private key, and now that is what gets used to sign things, and the signatures are what prove that it's that identity. So it's all signature based identity, but it has the underpinnings to allow you to rotate the identity and stuff like that. It's got some other neat things that it opens up to, like for example, NFT gating for like NFT ownership as like passes. So I don't know if I should. Yeah, you know what? I'll just share it now anyway. Because I was gonna put like kind of like a landing page that's like a waitlist thing, but it's not 100% working, but it's really close, and it might even work. But the website is mintflow.me.
Cool.
And the idea behind Mintflow is that it's basically just a collection minter built on the one set ordinals collection spec, but it's geared toward minting like passes and things like that. So the whole idea is you can go through, mint an NFT collection, sell them, and now these are your premium access to your website, your pro tier, and all that kind of stuff. So now all a user has to do is buy those. They go into this identity wallet that holds these tokens for access passes. Mm-hmm. And then as you go in signing into different websites, that's how it can know that you're on whatever tier. And and then people can mint,
take a peek,
whatever they want. And again, this is the collection spec. It's really flexible, so it lets you do whatever kind of tiers you want there. But you could do other collections with this in theory, like you could have rarities like legendary, common, this, that, and the other with all this. So yeah, a lot of this is probably some boilerplate, to be honest.
Sure. No, it's totally fine, for sure. Very cool. Yeah. And then, so if we were to talk about, how this ties in again, so we have like Sigma Identity, you have the token protocols, you have like, all these other things. Like one of the things we've talked about internally is like theme token, for example, which actually explain theme token for people that,
it's a little bit of monkey bars. There's a lot of things. Theme token was just a random idea that ended up being a little bit cooler the more I built it. Themetoken.dev is the website for that one. Theme token is super cool. I'm having some issues with yours wallet, which is that's a whole other thing. That's getting a big upgrade.
Yeah.
But if the publishing side was working really smooth, the rest of the website I think is all good to go. I haven't actually really put it out there yet, but it's the idea is there's something called ShadCN UI that everybody uses for like a front end design system.
Yep.
And it has a registry that works with the regular NPM registry. So you can just install like individual components into your project, as well as themes. And you could use this website like tweakcn.com to like create, to customize what that theme's like and then put it in your project. And we use it, all the time.
Yep.
So it occurred to me like there's no, the only registries for themes are just people's websites that they've made that they offer them, and half of them have paywalls, and the other ones are on TweakCN, and there's a few, and you can create your own and then share them, but it would be better if we just had an on-chain registry for those. And so Theme Token started with just, hey, let me record my themes on chain, and then it turned into, well, you can make it totally ShadCN compliant, so you can install on-chain things with NPM. So now you can do like NPM, install like the regular ShadCN CLI, but then you point to a theme token URL with like the TX ID of where the theme is, and it installs basically things from the blockchain into your project.
Right.
Which is pretty cool, because then now you can realize, hold on, we can now register anything that's ShadCN compatible. So not just themes, we could do like components and all this stuff.
Yep.
So there's some things in the works on Theme Token that it's going to get way better than just being themes. But anyway, once you mint one of these things, they're one-sat ordinals, they go in your wallet, then any website that you visit that supports Theme Token could apply that theme. So that's how Theme Token, the website, currently works. If you get one of those themes, you put it in your wallet, those are the themes that are available for you to choose to skin the site.
Yep.
But a new version of OneSat.market is coming that will support Theme Token. I believe a new version of Yours Wallet is coming that will support Theme Token. Yep. And OneSat Wallet is also going to become like a first-class wallet in the sense that you can use it from other apps. You'll be able to use your OneSat wallet to pay for things and to do things in other apps as well. And in that case, it can also respect the themes. And that's actually an interesting thing, because if you remember Money Button, you remember Invisible Money Button, any of these things, they always have a custom UI that overlays on your app that doesn't look like your app.
Yeah.
And some of them solve it by putting a couple themable parameters, dark mode, light mode, but it's never going to really match your app if you're trying to really dial it in.
Right.
So this actually lets you get very granular and define very specific theming information that can be had by anything that's integrated into the website.
So we're talking about the granular aspect of it. Like this is OneSat.market, which is beta. I love the characters here. But if we were using Theme Token, for example, and so you could make your entire browsing experience on something like this. Let's see if there's look at BSV20, Degen NFTs. There's stuff here. You got your BSV21 tokens and whatever. But right now, that's a very like black and yellow essentially, and then you have your primary and secondary colors. I think are. So if you wanted everything in your universe to be like blue and green or whatever, so it would recolorize all of this on the fly, underlying, and so your website to website experience could be thematically consistent based on the color palette that you want to use.
Right.
That's
which is like very cool. It's cool because it gets toward like the user's wants, and then as a website owner, I'm just picking a theme and saying, hey, I hope my users like this. It'd be cooler if they knew, you know what I mean?
Right. So the sites, thinking about the building blocks, I have always thought about our roadmap like Legos in that, okay, so here's the Lego for your HTML and CSS or whatever else. And here's your Lego for your token standard or whatever else. And here's your Lego for your identity stuff. Now you've even created this Lego for like a color palette that can follow you across the meta net, for lack of a better term. Like what other things are there? I know you're super into like music and like a lot of experiential stuff, but you also think very broad and holistically about the whole system. So what other things might there be connected there that perhaps I've forgotten about, because you've got a million things in your head. I don't know that I could ever keep track of them.
We can kind of talk about that's probably the most thought-provoking and fun to talk about is the game.
Yep.
So this I don't think I've ever really talked about anywhere because I didn't know when I could really get to it. The thing that I love about right now is I can move so fast compared to before that all the things I've ever wanted to do are going to happen now. Like all the old apps that we started and really wanted to make, they're all going to come out. They're going to look really polished and they're going to feel great. They're going to be built, they're going to interoperate and it's going to be amazing. And I really almost never talked about this idea of the game because I almost was afraid I could never really get to it.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted to make a game, and I slowly developed an idea for one over a long time. And it's all blockchain based, and it's super, super cool. But I think I can share the landing page for it. It's alchema.world, ALCHEMA.world. And what you can do now is you can sign up for the wait list and get on the email list. What you will get eventually is an email link with an invite to claim an NFT. And when you claim the NFT, that NFT will be redeemable in the character creator. So that's how you'll actually make your character, and then your character will be an NFT as well.
Nice.
But the character is going to be basically you in the game, right? So all the way to the point where it will have your likeness. You said it's backstory. There's a bunch of different variation that there can be. I'm not going to get too much into the game other than to say, let's talk about how the blockchain stuff makes it super unique. Well, the game world ticks forward every 10 minutes. So if you've ever played a turn-based game like a Civilization or something like this, where you're sitting there playing along or whatever, you hit the next turn button and the whole world animates for like one frame, and then you're paused.
Yeah, one cycle. Yeah, it's like a decade or a century, depending on the context. Yeah.
So one block is 10 minutes of in-world game time, which is almost real-world time. But it's literally the tick that moves the world, which is just kind of a cool mechanic. It just very much paying homage to the fact that it's built on Bitcoin at the core. But there's some interesting stuff to talk about here that Bitcoin makes game engine stuff that is really hard to solve from a technical sense. Like world scale MMORPG stuff is very difficult to do cohesively, and Bitcoin just like shrugs it off.
Right.
So literally we're talking about, why would you use map tags? Well, you just need one freaking metadata tag that says geohash and a location, and you've just associated anything that you have. So you have already something cool going on in some other app or whatever, fine. Put this little thing on there, and now it's associated with this location, and anything that is a geohash explorer could potentially show that thing in context on a map. Right? It's like that simple. Now what gets shown on the map, what gets included, that is what you're talking about when you're saying what is an overlay, right? What gets included. So if I'm making a game world, well, I might have criteria in my game world of what gets included. But the bones of this protocol, this is also a game built on an open protocol. So the bones of this protocol is there will be a world field that's essentially a seed field where you put a unique string and you're in a whole different world. So the same mechanics that I use to build this game will essentially be available for anybody else to build a similar world with their own rules and their own ideas pretty easily. And then I think I would imagine SDKs and things like that would probably come from it as well.
Sure. And so we're talking about characters as a token, items as a token, places as a token, all of them in overlays.
I'll give you one cool example that ties a couple projects together to give you an idea of the interoperability, without blowing the lid on kind of what the
the special sauce. But
so in the game, there's a concept of radio towers, and the radio towers are items that would be on chain as well, but they're owned by the game and inscribed by the game, so you can't move them, but you can travel to them, and if you're within the right distance of them, your character is there. You can open a trade dialogue with them, and if you have audio NFTs that are compatible and accepted by the game, you can place them in the radio tower. Then when any user is traveling in the vicinity of that radio tower, that's the music that they'll have to select from in the in-game radio. Right.
Sure. And would those be Jamify tokens, presumably?
So this is an interesting point. So they definitely could be, but with a game and you want to make a certain experience, they're going to be curated. So they're going to have to fit with the game world. You can't have,
Mendeep.
the famous Ordinals, one of the first Ordinals audio NFTs. Do you remember what it was? The guy farting into a microphone?
Yes, I recall. Yeah.
Power, if we look at it that way. But that's kind of the thing. So what I'm trying to show, kind of mention here is you can still have totally private, proprietary, this is a game, but it's on an open protocol. So that other people could build things like inventory explorers on a mobile phone. Right. Or some companion, or even build apps that helped control the game and did things in the game if they were complying with the game's rules. It's a different scenario,
Yeah. No, I love that. Well, especially again, like you can ring fence like what should be in World of Alchema, so you don't take people right out of World of Alchema with fart on chain or whatever. Like it shouldn't be your favorite Jay-Z song or whatever necessarily, but.
Right, but if you offered users creation tools inside the game that were confined to make things like, for example, the character creator, it will generate you a character based on inputs that you're putting in, but there's confines to like the aesthetic that it's going to produce in the end.
Right.
So that the whole thing is cohesive.
No, that makes sense. So let's talk about Jamify. Now, Jamify was something you were super excited about, but it was built on Run protocol and not long, and it was picking up a ton of steam too. And then, Run started being a problem. Relay X became a problem. Then all the people involved in all of it are like, hey, we're moving on.
At the time, we're building out Jungle Bus and like some of these things. And that's now, like, think of that moment. That's exactly why OneSat came into existence, right?
Yep.
Like, it was right then when we were looking to support. I mean, honestly, what we were doing at the time is we were looking to put Run support. Like we were going to put a lot more support behind like Run stuff.
Yeah. We built Jungle Run and a bunch of stuff. Yeah, we were working hard to make Run tokens really take off. But
But yeah, I'm not sad with where everything landed for sure, because I just think it's fun to work with. I think. The JS OneSat Ord stuff, we can make tokens and NFTs like so easily. The JavaScript library, it just like works and it's super simple. And once we have some of these other, like we've had up to this point, very rudimentary like wallet style, like you just hit the endpoint with an address and get the UTXOs, kind of the same way it's been in Bitcoin for a long, long time. But we're just now starting to get the evolution of that with the wallet toolbox and the BRC100 stuff and all that. And so we are now integrating a lot of our stuff in that direction as well. And a lot of the new things, like when the new version of the OneSat wallet comes out, that's going to be all, all compliant with all the new.
I think, speaking of that, I think you should take a little bit of credit for like a lot of that tooling came out of what you created with Bucks and stuff back in the day. Bucks ended up getting sort of absorbed into BSVA and all of that. And then they've since iterated and done some other things. But can you talk a little bit about like, some of the lower level tooling? And then I would like to pivot back to Jamify. But ultimately, the Go SDK, the Yours Wallet stuff, here's my magic thumbs up, which has now distracted me. But also like, the things that became the wallet toolbox and based on Bucks and all of these things, like, I said at the beginning of the show, when I think about like what our team has been involved in,
it's crazy.
Just between you and David, like it's most of the stuff that has ever happened on BSV has come out of projects that started with you two guys. So can we talk a little bit about like the evolution of Bucks into what it has become and why people might want to use tools for
Bucks
these
ended
kind
up
of things?
becoming SPV wallet. Which is the Go, a whole, very fleshed out implementation, server side wallet that really thinks through a lot of these edge cases. This stuff is still pre-TerraNode in a lot of ways, so it's still going to have further iterations. But all of these concepts, though, I mean, I definitely don't want to take more credit than I deserve either, because all the things that we've made were built on things that other people made.
Sure.
You know, like even the Go SDK, there was libsv before that.
Right.
And a lot of that stuff came from stuff that was in BCH before BSV was a thing.
Right.
You know.
Sure.
So
well,
yeah,
even, you know, to pass some of that credit around, you know, even guys like Siggy were working on stuff in Bitcoin schema, and then you had
well, he made BAP. That's now
right.
the whole basis for Sigma Identity. Years
Yeah.
ago, I mean, he hasn't done anything on it in a long time because he's been a little preoccupied. But like,
yeah,
but it's pretty crazy. I mean, I like the idea of trying to see through some of the early stuff, and then if they don't work for whatever reason, then there's like compelling next wave stuff that's very clear. That's all fine and good, but I love the idea that we have this stuff that goes back so many years, and these old protocols still, I mean, they're not doing incredibly difficult things. We can all nitpick about whether or not something should be a string or bytes or like X or like whatever, but at the end of the day, I just want the stuff to work. And I've been wanting it to work for so long. I feel like I'm finally at the point where these things are going to start coming online like all at once.
Right. Well, speaking of coming online, Jamify, I was very excited to see when you shared a day or two ago, and you're like, hey, like we're starting to figure out how all the stuff we're working on is going to bring Jamify back. So let's talk about bringing Jamify back, please.
Yeah. So I put up another email screen here so that we can kind of let everybody know when it really is ready to drop. But it's already functional to the point where I have all the old music that was on there before, and it's all playable. And that actually all just worked because of, like I said, ORDFS serves up B stuff, and the run tokens used B as the file inscription format.
Yep.
But anyway, I mean, what we're going to be able to do. I actually just had a call with Brenton from Run the other day. Yeah. Talking about it. And what we're going to do is essentially let you, if you have the keys, obviously, to your old Relay wallet, you'll be able to go on here, see all the stuff that was in your wallet, mint new one set NFTs based on those things, and then kind of the whole new publishing system will be based on one set and stuff, because that's where all our tooling is around. If we were to try to go back and support Run, it would just be a whole effort the size of the one set effort.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. So in Jamify, let's walk through why Jamify matters. Like when we talk about publishing and rights creation and royalties and all of that kind of thing. Can you walk through like what is the grand vision of Jamify? Yeah,
it's actually weird, and I think a lot of people, even in music, don't quite get what I'm trying to do with Jamify yet. But it's another one of those things where I feel like I need to build it out far enough so that people can see what I mean. But I think the way that we do monetization of music is a little weird with the like pay per stream, when especially it doesn't fit perfect with blockchain music, because you think about it, if it's literally on the chain and you can just get it, how am I going to paywall what you could just download and listen to? You know, and then like, what's the cost of the bandwidth of a song is like so negligible, right? That a platform would obviously pay that. Obviously depending on users and all that different stuff, but you'd have some way to monetize if you had that many users. So anyway, but we do introduce other things like this idea of Jamify Radio kind of just came up, where, okay, we have all these tracks on chain. What if we use the old Shoutcast system where basically we have a server that's picking the Jamify songs and keeping track of the plays, and then we can put advertisements on there, and then people could either do like, you know, free or pro for the radio. And then the artists that get plays, we could be paying them for plays off of that. Right. But then from the platform, everybody just streaming just songs. You want to browse, you want to find music, you want to make a playlist. Jamify was always meant to be totally free, because then you could share it online, more people find out about the artist, and the idea is the NFTs go up in value. But those become like collectibles that become a little bit more the way the artist is trying to focus on monetizing, like a membership, like an artist membership club or this kind of a thing. And then the artist has to And then we want to give them tools, obviously, to like foster that relationship, do things like, so again, Sigma, full circle. If we now can mint NFTs, the artist can mint NFTs and it's like VIP pass. And then we have BitChat Nitro hooked up with Sigma, and that's like a chat system. And you can get into a private chat if you have this NFT. Well, now you kind of close the loop of what I mean.
Right. So people essentially, like, you're creating a creator identity, and then you have people that are purchasers or users of the system. So like from a customer standpoint or from an artist standpoint, like they're using their identity to participate in this economy. It's such an obvious thing in so many ways, but also so many people just kind of, you know, they don't get it, you know, in some ways, including myself, right? Like I just have a Spotify playlist that I play at the gym or whatever. I had a buddy I talked to the other day who was just like, man, I don't know, I still use Pandora because I like to be surprised by the variety.
I was trying to remember that name earlier today, Pandora.
It's funny. Yeah, no, I hadn't even thought of Pandora in probably a decade. And I was like, wait, you still use Pandora?
Yeah. Yeah, so the whole thing with Jamify is, well, it's weird too, because that you have to kind of rethink everything now with the AI stuff as well.
Yeah.
Because like there's a lot of people making, you know, really high quality music with AI. And it's very funny how we end up with different interpretations of the different mediums, right?
Yeah.
Like image, that's fine. You can generate images. That's fine. You can't really generate audio because that's like not it's not like organic enough for humans to consume.
Right.
Or something like that. I don't know. It's hard to like explain, but I feel like we're just in the uncanny valley for most of this stuff. And the resistance is only just temporary resistance from the current generation that's used to doing things a certain way.
Sure.
And the young people are just going to do what young people do.
Right.
You know, and this is the way things will move. So anyway, the question comes, how do we present AI generated music? Obviously being able to generate it and store it on chain, the stuff that you think is cool, there's a cost to it. So it automatically kind of, slops it a little bit. So people put all the junk on.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that, but yeah, I think there's a ton of there's tons of room to like grow for all of these little industries in all these different ways. And I think just even having something out there that takes a stance in some direction is good enough to possibly have some real inroads in any one of these areas.
Yeah. Well, and that's really the beauty of it, is that when you look at, you know, what this vision is, you know, I think back to the first time somebody explained MetaNet. I think it was probably Craig on stage circa 2020 talking about like, hey, here's how you can use Bitcoin to essentially resorb the internet and have it all served, you know, like all the relevant stuff served from the blockchain so that it's more censorship resistant, so that you get more ownership of all these other things. And you know, I remember thinking like, man, like, first of all, that's so cool, but also, you know, you're competing with Amazon and Facebook and X, you know, Twitter at the time, and, you know, all these things. And it's like, okay, so there's like $100 billion worth of stuff tangled up in the existing internet, but it's so broken in so many ways. And, you know, Craig talking about MetaNet was a big light bulb for a lot of people. But then from an implementation standpoint, it was very vague. It was very high level. You know, like, well, you could do this and you could do that and you could do like this. Mm-hmm. And then you were the first person I met that had a very systematic approach for, no, I've already thought of this. Like, it should be this, it should be that. Like, I've already built primitives and all these things. And now when you see it, you know, what we've already talked about, social networking and chat, both public and encrypted, and then you know, music and gaming and, you know, all these other things. Like, what are we missing? Like, what other pieces are there for like your basic internet experience that maybe you know should exist, and either we haven't talked about or we just haven't even taken a stab at yet?
No, there's one, and I can't remember what the hell it was. I was just thinking about this. Maybe it'll come to me, but I can't think of it right now. But I did think of something the other day that I was like, man, that's kind of a missing thing.
Well, you know, when I think about it too, it's like people are so focused on the interface, right? Like, you know, and I'm guilty of this too. I said it last week to John. Man, I would leave Facebook, but when I upload a picture of my kid and like I want my great aunt in Poland to see it, and I wouldn't have necessarily thought of her initially, but then I see her response, and then it triggers a conversation with that person that I wouldn't have otherwise had. And so, like, while I hate a lot of stuff about Facebook and the ad model and data mining and all that crap, it's also like it is providing me that service of keeping me connected to my global family and then my friends and all the economic stuff. And so it's not easy to just say goodbye. And so what you really need to do is essentially absorb everything. And that's what I really love about this vision, but it's also the uptake, right? Like, which is why, again, I told John, I'm like, John, please use Magic Attribute Protocol. Like, try to make it Bitcoin schema compliant, because then you're working your way into the stuff that already exists. You can bring the twetches back. You can bring the tree chats in. You can bring in all the lulocks from, you know, all these other things. And like, you know, if they can all be viewed by all places, then people can choose like, hey, I just want to see a stream of locked posts.
And that's what we've been working on, is basically making that easy. Because that's the thing. Like you could say, hey, I want to see all the B images, but like, where are you going to go to get all the B images?
Right.
You know, what are you going to do? Get a whole node synced?
Right.
You know, so that's why there just has to be ways to get to peers that care about certain protocol types. I always imagined that a protocol identifier basically constituted an overlay. In my mind, that's the way I thought of an overlay. That if something was a protocol prefix and it was tagged with that data, that was the signal that it was included in that overlay.
Right.
And that even if somebody, any one of the peers encountered anything that wasn't in that overlay that belonged in there, it would put it in. So, yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot that you can get caught up in how the transactions get into the overlay.
Right.
But I basically knew that that's a separate issue and that it will be solved because it must be, right?
Sure.
It's a critical thing. And so really where my focus was, okay, let's assume we have that all solved. What are we going to do on the application layer with this stuff?
Yep.
And it's really insane what kind of things that you can build when you just have this one thing of a ledger with just like some metadata and a couple other simple Swiss Army knife style protocols. You can build the most crazy stuff, especially when you consider that you have AI now that you can put in the loop as well.
Right. No, I mean, it's massive. So, you know, you mentioned like, what are you going to do? Sync up a node? So let's walk through the Open Protocol Labs site just a little bit. We talked about, if you look at, you know, so we looked at Sigma identity, we looked at Bitcoin schema, we talked about Bitcoin schema, we talked about one set ordinals, but up this top left here, this nodeless.network, can we talk a little bit about like what is nodeless.network? Why does that matter to anybody?
Yeah. So these are, again, ideas that we had from a long time ago. Kind of saw this coming a mile away, 100 miles away. Nobody's going to be able to sync up a whole node. You're going to want to stand up something that cares about a particular protocol or some piece of infrastructure that's going to get you that layer between your app and the blockchain. In other blockchains, they know all about this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's lots of central fast infrastructure that you can use on Solana and Ethereum and everything else to get blockchain. So this is that's basically a website to put our infrastructure offerings. A lot of it is all open source stuff like OrtFS, and you can host your own, but we're trying to make it easy so you can one click deploy a lot of these things and just pay with BSV or a credit card and have a monthly thing. But that's again why Sigma has prevented us basically from getting all the rest of this stuff out. Because if you think of nodeless, if you need to take subscriptions, you need NFT gating if you want to do a native Bitcoin subscription system. So you kind of have to have all that built. So you need the collection minter, that's Mintflow. You need the indexer, we have the infrastructure for that. You need kind of all these pieces, the identity system, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. So for anybody, seeking, and, there's not even anything we could click through, but I'm not going to do it. But I think you're exactly right. It's like, so if you need an ORDFS server or a B social overlay or a BSV21 or like you need to know who and how, and then you need the wallet and all these other things. So it's, it's an incredible amount of engineering. First of all, an incredible amount of planning, but then the engineering that's gone into it has been tremendous, truly.
Well, this does a good job of showing the pillars here too, right? So you have ORDFS, which is like the blockchain resolver server. You have B social overlay, which is that thing that one is just concerned with the social data. So that's the Bitcoin schema stuff. Anything that's tagged with that gets ingested into that overlay. The BSV21 overlay, same kind of thing, except for, these can all be tailored. So for example, B social overlay, you might fire one of these up and only care about one particular app key.
Yep.
In another scenario, you might fire up a BSV21 overlay and only have a few tokens that you want to index. Not
sure. Your company's tokens, for example.
Yep. 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Luke with the busiest house in the universe.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Somebody's locked out.
That's all right. But yeah, no, it's a, I think a lot of people, when we talk about the like, well, you should run your own index and you should do this and, all that. And it's like, people don't know how, or even if they know how in theory, like the implementation of it, like if they do it wrong, then they're already, it's like, okay, well, I should have built it that way 6 months ago. And now my app is starting to be successful, but it sucks because I've got an infrastructure problem. And so what Nodeless does, it allows people to run their light index, connect simply to Jungle Bus or directly to Gorilla Pool stuff. And like, so we've tried to design this and engineer this such that people can.
Yeah. Well, the overlays that are there. So, they're designed to work with the other peers that would be connected to the same overlay topics.
Yeah.
So the BSV21 overlay, if you fired that up and somebody else fired up one that was connected to the same coin, they would sync with one another, not just get the data from Jungle Bus or whatever. But this is what I meant earlier when I'm like, we can seamlessly transition away from the source of data being Jungle Bus as more individual nodes come on the various overlays. But to not have a well-connected node with all of this data to seed stuff means you're going to sacrifice user experience. Why would you do that when you have the data?
No, makes a ton of sense. And these are all problems that have had to be solved. Like, again, thinking back to like, hey, MetaNet could be this and it could be that. And it's like, there's a lot of thought that has to go into that stuff. So I don't want to go, I don't want to belabor the point on all of these things. I think we've gone over a lot of stuff for people. Where can people go? What can they do to participate in the ecosystems that we've created? How can we support them? Like when people think like, hey, I'm going to build an app or whatever, like where should they start? Who can they reach out to? Some people just need a little bit of coaching. Admittedly, I don't want to fill your schedule, but like what are the opportunities for people? Where should they get started?
I mean, I can only speak to what I know, which is the OneSat Discord. That's kind of where I hang out, and I know a lot of people. I see Sharon in there, their dev questions with one another, and there's other people that come in and help them and stuff. So it's pretty amazing. But it's a small, it's a pretty small community. It would be much better if there was 10 times more people in there building on this stuff. I think it's just a point too where if I'm really heads down on stuff, which I have been for a long time, I don't really talk about any of it for like a long time. I haven't said really anything about any of this stuff. But once these things are mature enough to where people can start using them, which we're right there at the tail end of most of these projects, I'll be around a lot more and hopefully
for sure
participating in the conversation a little bit more.
Take a quick gander here at onesetordinals.com. So for anybody that wants to find it, so onesetordinals.com, you can click here to join the Discord, and you're right in there to ask questions, which I get people ask me all the time, like, hey, how do I do? And so I try to send people there. But for anybody that wants to know, like, yes, onesetordinals.com will get you to the place, which, everybody look at the orb, follows my mouse, super snazzy. But join the Discord, talk to the guys that are doing the work, and ultimately, deploy. There's no reason not to deploy and iterate. Like the the building blocks are there. We've built a lot of those building blocks, and happy to work with people.
And for anybody curious, if you hunt around in the BOpenIO org or the Bitcoin Schema org, there is so much like really interesting code that these days you point an LLM to one of those repos and say, hey, I want to build something like this, and you'll be shocked what comes out the other side.
Yeah, for sure. Let's show Bitcoin, since we're showing stuff today. So bitcoinschema.org as well. Just at the start building, and you get right into code snippets and how to do it, and ultimately pretty easy, especially like Luke said, with the dev tools that exist now. It's it's really an incredible opportunity to build stuff that is on chain, can live forever, and start to change the world. Luke, final word, final thoughts, maybe even final thoughts about whatever else, given that this is the last show of the year here for the CoinGeek Weekly live stream.
I don't really have much, man. Just, I'm just eager to get these things out into people's, to people's hands, and actually it's kind of crazy how long I've been working on some of this stuff.
Yeah. And
to finally say that some of these things are out. I mean, literally as of this point, we basically don't have any of that, anything really live except for the OneSat Market site.
Yeah.
And then all these ones that I'm showing you today are kind of like last like 2% of getting them fully live as we work some of the publishing stuff. But I'm excited about it. It's going to be a crazy year. I guess that's the big takeaway. I was talking to Dave about that earlier. This year is going to be very, very different. I don't think I've ever gone into the end of a year like this thinking like, holy crap, this is going to be insane. And the reason is because the development flow and timeline changed even 6 months ago to be completely unlike anything before it. And our big weakness on BSV has been we're woefully undermanned, right? We don't have all the developers who are attracted to this chain because of all the bullshit out there. So it's pretty amazing to feel like the playing field is a bit more even.
Yeah, no, that we're finally starting to get there. I'm pumped too. Luke, always a pleasure. I'm really excited to consistently be working with you on this stuff, helping support Gorilla Pool, supporting the pillars over here, but really just getting the opportunity to have meetings and see what's going on in your head, and just really be in the thick of it and try to essentially save Bitcoin, which is what I've been saying now for 7 or 8 years. And so it's an honor and a pleasure, Luke. Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, later.
All right, take care, man. So everybody, like I said, this is the last show at the CoinGeek Weekly live stream for 2025, and I just want everybody to know, like, make the best of every day. We never know when it's going to be our last day on Earth. Like, the thing about time is it's the most valuable currency, and you don't know when it runs out. And so, truly, be good to each other, take care of each other. There's a lot of people struggling out there in the world, a lot of people that could use a helping hand or an encouraging word or somebody to just be there and be a friend. And sometimes, just reaching out to tell somebody that you care or that you're there to listen can be the thing that helps get them over the hump. And so we talk a lot about Bitcoin, and we talk a lot about a lot of other things here. But really the underlying principle of all of it is that these are tools that are designed to help us cooperate, because we want to build a world where we can truly be good to each other, both economically, but also, in ways that matter in all the social senses. Like, if we don't have real people in our real lives that matter to us, then a lot of this becomes a little bit opaque, why any of it matters at all. But if you really care, ultimately, BSV gives us this massive opportunity to create things that matter and can be eternal. And so that's what I'm here for. I hope that's what you're here for. It has been an honor and a pleasure, for the 5th year running, to do this show consistently at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every single Tuesday. So again, like, subscribe, hit the alert bell, all of that stuff. But really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, everybody, for participating in this show, for giving us your questions, your feedback, and for just jamming with us across social media and doing all the other stuff. We are going nowhere, and it really is an honor and a pleasure. So everybody, I'm Kurt Wuckert Jr., reminding you once again to be good to each other, but to also just keep pushing forward. The people that stick to it are going to outwork the people that won't. And so that's it, everybody. I will see you soon, and goodbye.